What's happening, lure enthusiasts? It's Zimtex here, and the current time is summer. Now the cicadas are making an awful lot of racket this time of year, so I thought I'd make this topwater creeper lure. Now I've never made a creeper before, this is my very first one, but you can creep along with me as I make it from start to finish. Let's get started on it right now. Now that I've got my design sketched out, I wanted to go over some of the features of this particular lure with you. As you already know by the thumbnail, this is going to be a creeper bait, and the smallest creeper wings that I could find available are these right here, which are pretty big. And they may still be a little bit too big for this bait. So my game plan is I'm going to get it all made, and I'll put this bracket on there, and then if I have to, I can cut these wings down a little bit so that it, works. That's kind of the game plan for now. Now cicadas are normally 2 inches long max around here, but I've made this one a 3-inch cicada just so I can get some more wood and hopefully float all this hardware. And I'm kind of banking on the fish not having their tape measures on them at lunchtime. I'm also going to be using basswood to help with the buoyancy. While I ordinarily use poplar, I think it's just a little bit too dense for this particular lure, and I need to get a little bit more buoyancy out of it. As you can see, I've got the tope point up here on the front, kind of on the center line, along with a hook point here and a hook point kind of at the center of the mass in the middle here, spaced pretty far from the rear hook so that they don't get tangled up. But my hardware is going to attach here on the side where I've got the most buoyancy. Now I've never made a creeper bait before, so we're going to probably have to do a little bit of testing and balancing to get it just right. Anyway, it's good to get outside your comfort zone and try something new every once in a while. So let's go ahead and get this cut out and get started. That is a nice clear piece of basswood. That should be a joy to carve. Let's find the center line. 1.5, 3/4. I saved the other pieces from my cut here, and I'm going to temporarily tack those back onto my lure here with some hot glue. A couple of little beads will be plenty. Of course, what that does is it gives me a square surface to work with so that I can put my side profile on. We used to find these things all the time when I was a kid. We had a pretty big backyard with 2 large pecan trees in the back. So in the summer, these cicadas would show up. Of course, we'd find all the shells on the trees where they had emerged from the ground and then morphed into their adult state. And so we'd collect those shells and things like that. I remember one time we found one that had just emerged and its wings weren't dry yet, so it couldn't fly off. And we caught it and put it in a box just to have, to play with, I guess. And we also had box turtles in our backyard. And that year we had some little baby ones hatch. And so we had one of those in the box as well. I didn't really think that the turtle was going to be able to eat the cicada because it was about the same size. And then of course the cicada was harmless to the turtle, but it wound up being kind of like a little mini rodeo because this hungry little turtle jumped onto the back of this cicada somehow and was trying to bite it, but it was so round it couldn't get its mouth on it. And so this cicada's running around in the box trying to, get it off. But fortunately, they were both pretty well evenly matched, so nobody got hurt. For this size lure, I'm going to use the .041 stainless steel lock wire. Good morning, everybody. It's the next day. I was kind of up last night worrying about how these creeper wings should be installed. So I did some more research last night. There's not a whole lot of information out there. I was able to find some information from musky lure makers, and I wanted to share with you some of those design concepts before we get started today. One of the things I learned is that this bent piece of metal right here is called the angle limiter because obviously it limits the angle that the wing can open. But what you can do is you can take a pair of pliers and you can change that angle and change the action of the lure. So the wider the angle like this, the wider the wobble. The narrower the angle, the tighter the wobble. Now you can see that I've already mounted these wings on here, but I think I'm going to need to move them a little bit. And that's because what you want to do is mount this plate slightly below the center line of the lure. And I've got it pretty much right on the center line. But I think the reason that you want it slightly below the center line is one, to help with the walking action. But two, it also helps with the balance of the lure a little bit, right? You always want your weight below the center line so that it sits upright in the water correctly. Now you also want your hinge to be slightly forward of the center line of the lure so that the wings extend a little bit past the front of the lure. Now you want this hinge to be slightly forward of the center line of your lure, and when you close the wings up, you want them to extend a little bit past the nose of this lure. Because this lure is not very long, my wings are extending quite a bit past the front of the lure, but if I were to move these wings back, then I'd be mounting them behind the center line here. So I'm probably going to leave these about where they're at for this particular lure. The other thing is that when you fold these wings, they should close a little bit past 0 degrees. If 90 is straight out and 0 is straight up, they should close a little bit past that. Now I've got one here that's not because it's hitting this nail, but I'll work on that and see if I can't get that nail to lay a little bit flatter. So I think we're looking pretty good on that front. All right, now you might have noticed that I did a little bit of a patch here on the top of this lure. I had accidentally filed a little groove right there that I didn't need. So all I did was I used a little bit of this plastic wood putty and let it dry, sanded it smooth, and then put a little bit of Instacure over it to waterproof it. But that made a pretty good patch, and because this is going to be a painted lure, I'm not really worried about how it looks now because we'll cover that. Let's see what we got here. So I think I'll take this out to the pond and give it a few casts and we'll see how it swims. So I have had a heck of a time getting this lure to swim right. Man, I've done all kinds of things to try and make it work. I've changed the location of the brackets. I've filed down the wings and made them smaller to reduce the weight. I've put more weight on it, I put less weight on it, I've moved the weight around, and nothing I did seemed to work until I finally made some polycarbonate wings. You can see here, these are pretty rough, they're just kind of prototypes. I do plan on making nicer ones to put on here for the final version, but I finally started to get that swimming action that these lures are known for, which is a good thing because I was about to give up on the creeper design altogether and just put a lip on it and make a crankbait and just get it done. But since I found this new path, it looks like I'm gonna be able to press forward. Just wanted to let you know that things are starting to look up for this lure and we can get it finished. We'll put a little bit of lead here towards the tail a little bit to kind of balance it out. First coat is going to be a few layers of this automotive primer, which we can sand and get this thing ultra smooth. Okay, so once you get a couple of layers of that on there, you can start to see a few of these little rough areas. At this point, I would use some pretty fine sandpaper. I'm just going to gently try and smooth out those little areas. After you've hit it with the fine sandpaper, you can either put some more primer on it again, or you can just move straight into white, which is what I'm going to do. We're going to put some opaque white over the whole thing. Now that we've got that done, I'm going to lay down a layer of fluorescent green, which I do think is going to be too bright, but it's easier to take a bright color and kind of tone it down slightly than the reverse. So I'm going to start with this fluorescent green, and then we may darken it just a little bit. I'm going to bring that down just a little bit with some transparent bright green. Now the key here is to just put enough on there to bring that brightness down a little bit. I don't want this to be a real dark green lure because it's going to have a lot of black on it, a lot of black detail. So we don't want to compete too much with that. We just want to tame this green just a little bitty bit. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit more realism and some depth to this by putting a little bit of a yellow down the middle here. And I'm just going to use an opaque yellow. Now we're going to do our detail with opaque black. Alright, we're going to add a little bit of detail on here with some iridescent yellow. Alright, I'm going to stop right there before I overwork this thing. I don't need a whole lot of detail right here because, again, that's where the wings are going to be. So I think that's looking pretty good. So I've skeletonized these brackets just to reduce the weight a little bit more, and I'm going to install those with some of this Instacure. I'm going to use the extra thick version of it, and I've also got this small tip here that I'm going to put on there, and that'll allow me to get my glue way down in the hole, which is where I need it. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do with this on the shaping is I'm using this metal edge that I've got. It's pretty much the cleanest, smoothest edge I've got. So I'm going to make a scoop here. I'm going to line that up like so, and then I'm going to get the torch on it. And the next thing we need to do on that is fold all the tabs, and basically my game plan for that is to just use this metal wing that I've got, heat it and place it over that, and then let it use that as my form to fold that over. As you can see, that gives me kind of the basic shape. I'm going to reheat this and fold those tabs in just a little bit more so that they will fit inside the bracket, right? Because right now they're too wide. So these wings actually do not come with pins. So I just use some of my stainless steel lock wire here to pin. If you like the content I'm putting out, please consider subscribing if you haven't already, and give me a thumbs up so I can make more of the stuff you want to see. Also, feel free to leave a comment. I welcome your feedback and appreciate all of your support. Thanks again everyone for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.